next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Prabjot Kaur, again a young star and consultant in vitro retina, uvea and immunology services of Visakhapatnam, LVPI, and she's going to be talking on hypopyon in anterior uveitis. Look forward to hearing a great talk from you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chitra, for a very warm welcome. So starting with the talk, hypopyon, as the word itself suggests, is nothing but accumulation of inflammation or inflammatory byproducts in the inferior part of the anterior chamber of the eye. So today we'll be talking of hypopyon related to anterior uveitis. So before we go into the details of those related to anterior uveitis, let me first give you a broad classification. So it can be either inflammatory or it can be a masquerader. Amongst the inflammatory causes, you have to look at infectious and non-infectious etiologies. The infectious etiologies would be a presence of a microbial keratitis or endophthalmitis, which can be either exogenous or endogenous. Amongst the non-infectious causes, broadly, the most common ones would be HLA-B27 associated. The other causes would be Behçet's disease, lens-induced uveitis, JIA, or iatrogenic causes, which will include drug-induced like rifabutin, or surgical products, or a toxic anti-segment syndrome. Coming to the masqueraders, we need to rule out malignant causes such as retinoblastoma, leukemias, lymphomas, juvenile xanthogranuloma, and again, few non-malignant causes such as IVTA particles in aphakic patients, which can even present as pseudohypopyon. So I'll be taking you or walking you through 14 curiosities in hypopyon. So starting with the infectious causes, the first question, what is the differentiating feature between hypopyon of a bacterial versus fungal infection? So the hypopyon in bacterial infection is usually sterile because it is purely inflammatory. However, fungal, it is usually infective because fungus has this ability to penetrate the cornea through the layers of the cornea. Having spoken about the bacterial and fungal infection, can you see a hypopyon in viral keratitis? Yes. And what are their characteristics? So remember these 5 tips. It can be subtle. It is usually associated with a progressive endothelitis. Presence of pigmented keratic precipitates can give a clue to the diagnosis. It sometimes may present with a blood-tinged hypopyon. Now, one has to keep this in mind that we need to start systemic antivirals if we see viral keratitis in a neonate along with a hypopyon. Systemic antivirals will also be needed if there is other systemic manifestation of viral infection or an ARM. Coming to the third curiosity question that one should think of is there any relevance of color of the hypopyon? The answer is yes. So apart from the usual white and those yellowish tinged hypopyon, let me give you a few colored hypopyon. So brown or a pigmented hypopyon, one would see in a uveal melanoma. Infectious causes would be listeria or a streptococcus. Again, one can find a black hypopyon, which from the infectious causes would point towards listeria or malignant melanoma amongst the masqueraders. A pink hypopyon can be seen in serratia or Klebsiella. And finally, as we just spoke, a blood-tinged hypopyon may be seen in a viral infection or in masqueraders. Going to the fourth curiosity question, what does worsening of inflammation mean when a patient is started on topical steroids? So when you see a patient with inflammation in the eye and you start him or her on a topical steroid, and then over a period of time, you see that the patient comes back with a hypopyon or there is progression or increase in the size of the hypopyon, rule out infection. Think of infectious etiologies. Now, having understood about the infectious causes, let us now move through the non-infectious one. The fifth question here. When does one suspect a HLA-B27 associated uveitis? So if you see a patient with hypopyon with a unilateral severe non-granulomatous anterior uveitis or an alternating one, think of HLA-B27 associated uveitis. Usually they are limited to the anterior segment, but rarely they may present as a coexisting intermediate uveitis as well. The next cause would be, how does hypopyon in a Behçet's disease look like? So now Behçet's hypopyon is usually a transient hypopyon, a recurrent one, and shifting hypopyon based on the posture and gravity. Usually, when it is limited to the anterior segment, Behçet's disease has a good prognosis. But once you start seeing the involvement of the posterior segment in the form of small to medium retinal vasculitis, as seen as a ferning pattern on FFA, the prognosis deteriorates. These are the cases which have a poorer prognosis. When to suspect a phacolytic uveitis, usually the patient will give a history of long-standing diminution of vision. There will be a total mature cataract. With inflammation, it will usually be a lot of flare and fibrinous inflammation along with these white lens particulate matter in the inferior part of the anterior chamber of the eye. As you can see, the lens particles which you see might be slightly refractile. The next question would be when to suspect rifabutin-associated hypopyon uveitis. So immunocompromised patient started on rifabutin treatment for a Mycobacterium avium complex infection are the ones which will present. So medical history is very important on what treatment they are on. So hypopyon most frequently associated in this type of uveitis, that is drug-induced rifabutin-associated uveitis. Rarely it might even present with, the patient might have a dense vitritis and yellowish white opacities, and you might think that probably it's an endophthalmitis, but no, very rarely it can even present as a panuveitis-like picture. Moving on to the hypopyon in pediatric eyes, what should be the approach in a child with anterior uveitis? So we have two columns here. One is acute and chronic. The acute uveitis, acute anterior uveitis will be a child with a red eye and hypopyon. So the most commoner causes would be HLA-B27. It can be seen in Behçet's disease. And if you're not able to find a cause, it can be labeled as an undifferentiated one. But in patients with a white eye, that is chronic uveitis in a child, the probable diagnosis would be a JIA or a juvenile idiopathic arthritis. Mind it that hypopyon in a JIA is extremely rare. Being on the topic of JIA, what is the risk of uveitis in these children? So if they have a systemic disease, it is almost never. But if it is polyarticular, the risk increases to 5%. When it is oligoarticular, it is 20%. Once again, it is extremely rare to see hypopyon in JIA, but it might be seen in enthesitis-related JIA. Going to the last section, that is the masqueraders with hypopyon. Hypopyon in a white eye, hypopyon in white eye in a child, as we were discussing, it is rare to see a JIA child coming with a hypopyon. But if you see such child, you should always rule out anterior retinoblastoma. So if you see a normal posterior segment, a white eye hypopyon, go and find out whether it is an anterior retinoblastoma. So let me now give you a few tips and tricks for anterior retinoblastoma. So the cells would be larger cells. Hypopyon usually doesn't shift. The eye is white in color, so obviously there is no congestion. They do not respond to topical steroids. It has a lumpy, bumpy appearance or appearance to the hypopyon. One should do a gonioscopy to look into the anterior chamber angles for seeding. Tumor deposits may be present on the iris, and one need to tap the AC to do a cytopathology of what is that we are dealing with in such eyes. So these are the tips and tricks one should take back when you see a child with a white eye with hypopyon to rule out an anterior retinoblastoma. My 12th question would be that what does hypopyon in a leukemia indicate? So it might be a de novo sign, or it can be a first sign of relapse in eyes in patients with AML. It can even be a blast crisis in CML. Usually, presence of a hypopyon is associated with a poorer life prognosis, suggesting CNS spread. And if you see a non-resolving blood-streaked hypopyon, suspect leukemia. One can go for an AC tap or a vitreous tap for the cytopathological analysis. The 13th question would be when to suspect triamcinolone acetonide masquerading as a hypopyon. If you see a crystalline deposits in anterior chamber in patients who are aphakic or partially phakic, like you see here, in those eyes, the IVTA given can come into the anterior segment of the eye and present as crystalline deposits. It might even present, as you see, as iris nodules, but usually there will not be any inflammation. So you know that these iris nodules are nothing inflammatory. So they're secondary to the crystals of the IVTA particles. Around that, the nodules form. Also, it can masquerade as a posterior segment inflammation. You might feel that probably you're dealing with some vitreous exudates or strands of opacities, but it is just IVTA particles. So again, that can be one non-malignant cause which one should keep in mind. Now, what does hypopyon in a case of leukemia suggest? This will be my last question. So it suggests reactivation of leukemia, a blast crisis, or CNS involvement. Let me summarize. One should keep in mind the classification, the broader classification, which I said, telling us about the broad causes, which will help you approach to your case. Second would be whenever you're approaching with a child with anterior uveitis, it is extremely rare to have a white eye with a hypopyon. If you see a white eye with a hypopyon, please rule out anterior retinoblastoma. And what does hypopyon in a case of leukemia suggest? Possibly a relapse in cases with AML, poorer life prognosis, and might need a AC tap or a vitreous tap for further analysis. Before I conclude, I would leave you with a question to ponder over, which are the systemic infections which are known to be associated with hypopyon in eye. With this, I will conclude. Thank you.
That was a lovely talk, Prabjot, and I think you should make teaching a part of your profession. It was so good. So Dr. Vaishali, I'm going to ask you a very simple question before Mudit takes on. Does the presence of hypopyon indicate a more grave prognosis for the visual outcome?
Yes, Chitra. For me, like hypopyon associated with endophthalmitis and keratitis would not be anything of significance because that's a different game. But when we talk of uveitis, if I see a hypopyon in a child, my first thing would be to rule out leukemia. And what is most important is sometimes you are seeing those pearly white deposits like pearls in the anterior chamber, which do resemble an hypopyon, but which is a pseudo-hypopyon. That's a great clue towards possibility of retinoblastoma. In an adult, severe hypopyon, HLA-B27, it really doesn't bother me. But only thing which I wanted to point out from previous talk was non-granulomatous actually means no KPs. The moment you see even a single KP, it becomes a granulomatous inflammation. So true non-granulomatous, HLA-B27 very well. But if you see no synechia, lymphomas will be very high on part. So it's not always the disease severity, it is about the associated disease, which would be very important. Our Bechet's, as she beautifully showed.
But I thought that a hypopyon would make us more aggressive in our treatment strategy. So the visual outcomes might actually be better in those eyes with hypopyon than otherwise, except those extreme situations you described. I don't know, I may be wrong, Dr. Avinash?
Aggressive therapy always doesn't mean a good visual outcome. Again, would depend on the lot of things associated, posterior segment involvement and all. But actually it brings your attention to need for a very aggressive therapy. Yes.
Dr. Mudit? Dr. Avinash, you have to add anything?
No, nothing. It just the level of hypopyon, like what Dr. Vaishali mentioned, it draws attention to any of the person who examines. And thereafter, like what Prabjot had already mentioned, so if the mental algorithm has been made in finding out what could be the possible cause and the systemic implications which can have, and also the therapeutic implications, what we had mentioned. So if you tailor make the treatment and also the evaluation process, it would take a long way in helping those patients.
Dr.
I have one point to add. The leptospirosis is one of the important infectious systemic disease that causes hypopyon, but it's easily treated with even topical steroids.
Myself and Ratnam has described hypopyon pigmented hypopyon in TB patients.
Yes, yes,
Both of
yes.
us described. So that the pigmented hypopyon does not rule out TB.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with Dr. JB sir.
Dr. Mudit, do you have any question before?
I just have actually one question for Prabjot. Prabjot, for the benefit of our audience and for everybody, can you just tell how do you clinically elicit the finding of a mobile hypopyon when we talk of Bechet's and we see that the hypopyon is mobile? How do you examine it clinically? How will you elicit it on a slit lamp or whenever you're seeing it?
So on a slit lamp, what I have done is, if you see clinically, while usually while the patient is sitting, if you see at that time, you will see it in the inferior position. If I make the patient lie down, that is what I have seen, that using the microscope in the OR, usually we see it, the hypopyon is not there. You don't see it is there. So that is another way where we can differentiate that it is no more there. The other thing would be probably, I have not myself elicited it, just I think probably you would have a better experience at doing that, but probably asking the patient to lie down and then come back straight again, it will take some time to reappear.
Any other thoughts from any of our panelists regarding Dr. Avinash?
In terms of eliciting,
Yeah.
so I think apart from if it's on the slit lamp, even turning the head also to a certain
Yeah.
extent is something which is very simple, which can be done. And the point what she made, when when the patient lies down, that's the one when you really feel that whether the hypopyon was there.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Even
Prabhu.
sitting
Those
the
were
head
really
will
wonderful
change the
slides.
hypopyon.
Almost 20 to 30 minutes sometimes it takes for the hypopyon to move.
Yeah, the tilt of head is very important over here.